Hello and welcome to Off the Fence, a podcast where we deconstruct difficult decision making so that we can try to figure out what keeps us stuck and, more importantly, how do we get unstuck? I'm your host, Karen Covey, a former divorce lawyer, mediator, and arbitrator turned coach, author, and entrepreneur. With me today on this very special episode of Off the Fence Stories, I have Monica. And Monica is a highly accomplished program manager, bringing expertise in program design and oversight with focus on social responsibility initiatives. Monica divorced nearly 7 years ago after a 30-plus year marriage, and she's bravely here to share her story with you. Monica, welcome to the show.
Karen, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity and hope that I can lend a hand, an ear, and just some thoughts to those who are listening.
And I know you will do that beautifully, and I really appreciate it. And that's why I so wanted to have this conversation with you because you and I go back a few years, shall we say. And I know a little bit about your story, but especially because you had the courage to divorce after a long-term marriage, I think that makes your story different, special, inspirational. So let's take it back and let's start at the beginning when you were in the throes of should I stay or should I go? What was your life like at that point?
Ooh, extremely difficult, extremely challenging. My physician at one point offered to put me on anti-anxiety medication. My sister was concerned that I was suicidal. I couldn't eat, sleep, work. I had very, very, very rough moments of just saying, why? How? What do I do next? Because as you stated, it was a long-term marriage. My first love. I met him when I was 17.
Oh,
I have literally never lived on my own until now. I went from my parents' home to the dorm, briefly back to my mom's home while I was engaged. Then I was married.
wow. So the idea of leaving the marriage and leaving the life that you had built and the only life you knew had to be even extra scary for you.
It was because I had completely lost myself. I was always someone to someone. I was someone's daughter, someone's employee, someone's girlfriend, someone's fiance, someone's wife, someone's mother. So, like many women, many people, but mostly women, I was always dead last. Everyone else's wherewithal came before mine. Everyone else was filtered through the decision of how does this affect someone else? And I gave up job opportunities. I gave up promotions for the sake of my family.
And how did, so when you found yourself in that position where you were, well, what were you thinking about? Were you thinking about divorce? Were you thinking about separation? Were you thinking about just what am I going to do with my life? What were you thinking and what were you feeling at that point when you were so low, when your doctor was talking about putting you on medication, when you knew things weren't right? But what were you thinking of and what gave you the courage to actually do something about it?
Oh my goodness. I wish that I could say that it was an easy decision. I wish that I could say it was a desired decision. I actually fought for my marriage. I did not want to be divorced. I really took the vows seriously and intended till death do us part. I suggested counseling. I suggested, do we need to separate? And unfortunately, a decision had already been made for me. that this was no longer a union. And you literally come to a point of, why am I fighting for a marriage that the other person does not want? It isn't a marriage any longer.
Yeah.
When you literally say, don't do this to us, don't do this to our family, and it doesn't go anywhere, you get to the point of saying, what am I holding on to? Literally, that was my question to myself. Why am I fighting so hard to hold on to someone who is already out the door, who has shown no interest?
Well, when that happened, when your husband said, I want a divorce or I'm divorcing you or whatever it was that he said, um, from that point, what happened? I mean, did he go ahead and file right away and now you just had to deal with it? Or did it take some time between then and when the divorce process actually started?
He actually did not file. I did.
Okay, tell me how that happened.
He never stated, I want a divorce.
What did he say?
It was just simply, there was a time of, it's not going anywhere. Often I was met with silence, which is the hardest of all, to be met with silence. I knew I was unhappy. I knew he was unhappy, but I also thought, this is a lull. This is a bump. This is a midlife crisis. This is just one of those times of, you've had more ups and downs. Give it some time. That time actually was years in the making, and that roller coaster was years. At one point, I had gone through the Lilac Tree, a support group, and went to Divorce University. And Karen's smiling because one of the things I always will appreciate is the chance to say that I actually ordered her roadmap, the 1.0 version. I understand you're now in what, 3.0?
The Divorce Roadmap, the online program, is now in its 3.0
Yes,
version. So that
yes,
was a few years ago.
right. And I actually started at that juncture in 2012,
Okay.
thinking I need to start figuring out what to do if it gets to this point. I'm hoping that it won't, but I need to know what to do. I
Mm-hmm.
filed in 2017.
Whoa, so it was 5 years of trying to figure out what am I going to do before you finally took the plunge and filed.
Right, because it was it was extremely challenging. I was walking on eggshells every day of, what did I do wrong? How can I make this better? What's wrong with me? Why am I not enough to fight for? That was the hardest thing. But I will never forget a male friend once telling me, it's not about you. Just because another person doesn't see your value doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
That's beautiful. That is really something. But look, part of the reason that I really wanted you to be here to share your story is because you are not the only one. I talk to so many people who are stuck in that, do I stay or do I go? How do I make it better? I take my vows seriously. I don't want to leave, but this is miserable. And they stay in that space for a very long time. They stay on the fence a very, very long time. But what you did and the way you went about trying to gather information and figure out how you could get through this process first before you were in the middle of it was brilliant. It's exactly the way that people they should be thinking about divorce. I mean, not that anyone should be thinking about divorce, but if you are facing it, what you did is so important because you were starting to get information, understand the system, and get yourself prepared, right?
Oh, Karen, I went to Divorce University twice.
Oh my goodness.
In 2022, when I thought this may actually happen, I need to know what to do. And it validated some of what I knew and what I thought. But I
Yeah.
did it again in 2017 before I actually filed and said,
Wow.
this is not getting any better. Where they say hope is not a strategy, boy, is that true.
Yeah. And for those people who are listening who might not, or watching, who might not be familiar with Divorce University or the Lilac Tree, I'll just put a plug in for them here and, just a free plug. But the Lilac Tree is a woman support group or organization that's operated out of Evanston, Illinois. And once a year, they put on a program called Divorce University. And back, Monica, when you did it, it was live and in person. And I've been part of the Lilac Tree and Divorce University for a very long time. They're an amazing organization. Now, I was a speaker at the latest Divorce University. It runs in the spring. Now it's once a year and it's virtual. So the awesome part about that is it appeals to people from all over the country. You don't have to physically go anywhere because that was a part of the challenge that people had is if they didn't want to be seen, they had, what did they do? They had to get there somehow. So now everything is virtual and they've got 2 full days of programming. And when you sign up, you get access to that programming for, I think it's 90 days. It's more than just the one day. So it's a really awesome program and they're opening it up to men as well. So for if anyone's watching or listening and thinking about it, you might want to check out the lilactree.org. We'll link to that in the show notes too, because they have really good programming and really good support groups for people. And it sounds like you went through that a couple of times. And then after that, what finally gave you the nudge or the courage or the impetus to say, yeah, I have to do this. It's time.
I have to do this. It's time because I didn't see any reason not to. I was not given any positivity, any encouragement that it was going to change. I was literally going downhill, that people that didn't even know me could look at me and say, "Are you all right?"
Ooh,
Now, when you have it so on your face that people know that there is something dreadfully wrong. And I had to do it for my son to just say, I can't keep he or I in this situation any longer. It's not fair to me. It's certainly not fair to him.
yeah.
Heaven knows I don't want this, but not wanting it doesn't make it so. And at this point, when I went through a second time, and even when you say a plug, when I ordered the roadmap, I so appreciated that because it actually made me know my approach was a correct one. The one thing I always tell anyone is there is love, but love is not in the courtroom. Love has nothing to do with what's happening when you're doing this. This is strictly business. This is strictly the ending of a contract. Now, believe me, I cried every day. I cried every night. But when it came time to business, my lawyer even said, "You're one of my better ones because of how you're approaching this." She says, "I
Yeah.
can see it's hurting you." But she said, "But you've got a hell of an approach." And I said, "That's because I know this is what I have to do. I know I've got one shot at doing this."
That's something that's really important, and I've heard that from other clients before, and I think it's an important message for people to hear, which is there are no do-overs in this, right? You either get it right the first time or you didn't get it right. So, so you went to Divorce University, you did the Divorce Roadmap program. What else did you do to get yourself in the best position possible to get through your divorce and make your one shot your best shot?
I gathered my facts and I prioritized what I wanted. For example, the house, where so many people say, I want the house, and they're fighting tooth and nail for the house. I went into it automatically saying, I do not want the house.
Why?
I was living in a 3 bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, 3 car garage home. I am not a handy person. I was fortunate in that the house was almost paid for. So it was bittersweet to let go of a house that I finished paying for, by the way, that that the house is nearly paid for. But I was keeping in mind it's too big. There's too many things I don't know about and don't know what to do. And keeping in mind, I live in a house that we brought from the original owners when it was 2 years old. 20
Wow.
years later, what do you think is about to happen?
Yeah, I love this because you're so practical, right? And this is what a lot of people, especially women want to keep the house for a variety of reasons, right? But they don't think about exactly what you did think about. Like, okay, the roof is 20 years old, the appliances are old, this is old. I'm going to have to do work that I can't do, so I'm going to have to hire people, and where am I going to get them? And where am I going to get the money? There is a lot involved in keeping the house over and above just, hey, can I afford to buy my spouse out?
Right. And when people think, oh, well, but you were mortgage free. Well, yes, but there's still insurance, there's still
Taxes.
taxes, there's still maintenance. When you have a house, there's always something that's going to happen.
Right.
And I knew that. And I thought, do I want to live in a house? No, I don't. And not only do I not want to live in a house, I don't want to live in a house that has the memories that I brought to it, saying, we're family. This was going to be my forever home. I don't want to live there with certain memories. I want and need a fresh start. I could have bought a condo or a townhouse. I didn't want to. I rent because I thought, you know what? I don't know what I want right now. So since I don't know what I want, I will rent. That gives me time to figure it out. Something goes wrong, I pick up the phone and call someone. I don't have to take care of insurance. I don't have
Yep.
to I don't have to take care of maintenance. I don't have to take care of taxes. If I decide I don't want to live here anymore, I give them notice, I move on. And
Yeah.
it gives me time to do that. Where if I buy, again, now I've got to be really sure this is where I want to be. And again, if I buy, I'm buying it myself. And is this what I want to do with my money versus investing it?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think a lot of people, especially if they weren't the one who handled the personal finances, don't really think about what's the time value of money, right? If I take this money and invest it, I'll get, potentially X as a rate of return versus if I put it in the house, I'm just hoping the house appreciates in value. And most of the time they do, but we both remember 2008. It wasn't so clear back then what happens, that property values always go up. So I think you made some really, really wise decisions. So how did this go once you decided, yeah, I'm going to do this? How did you manage to get through the process, and get to the end so you could move on? I mean, did you use litigation? Did you mediate? How did you do this? And why did you choose what you chose?
I chuckle whenever I read in a Facebook support group or anywhere else about people who use litigation. I chuckle, I marvel, and I'm also envious. I wish I had been in a position to mediate. I wish I had been able to. You cannot mediate with a person who is not going to mediate with you. You cannot. Unfortunately, litigation was the route that I had to go. I did not want to. As a matter of fact, I remember saying when I first filed, even before I filed, let's do everything we can do to save it. If, however, we can't, let's at least be civil to each other because that's
Yep.
the right thing to do and because of what we once meant to each other. That was my approach. But when you're not met with the same approach, you're not going to be able to mediate. Now, I was fortunate in that although I was in court, I didn't have to stay in court a lot. I literally was only before the judge twice
Okay. Why didn't you, what do you mean when you say you didn't have to stay in court a lot? What happened? What do you mean?
because basically the lawyers, two great people, they talked amongst themselves quite a bit. And actually, they were the ones that brokered a deal, including the judge. So literally, we talked back and forth beforehand. We talked in court, and they went back in the back, did whatever it is that they did, came back. The deal was made. The next time I was before the judge, I was getting divorced.
Wow.
So
And
yes, I filed in 2017. I was divorced in 2018.
that's wonderful. And I think this is also an important message for people to hear because litigation, I mean, it gets a bad rap, rightly so. I mean, nobody wants to fight like crazy in court, but sometimes, like to your point, if you have to use the system and you've got two professionals who are reasonable, you can use the system and still get through it in it's not a perfect way, but it's not a horrible way either. You don't have to fight to the death just because you're in court. If you can get the lawyers to help you broker a deal, and guess what, everybody? Judges want you to settle. They want to help broker a deal because they've got enough to do. They don't need to be trying every case that's in front of them. Actually, they can't. There's too many of them, right? So the judge was probably super happy that he or she was able to get you to settle.
I remember being in tears both time in the courtroom, particularly the last time, thinking it was so anticlimactic. It was like it all ended with a whimper. You think, that's it?
I had
That's it.
I had clients over the course of my legal career when I was actively practicing that would we'd walk out of the courtroom, I just divorced them, and that's what they would ask me, like, is am I done? Is that it? And it is, and I would tell people this is going to be the most anticlimactic thing you have ever seen in your life.
And it's horrible because when people liken it to a death, that I think is one of the best descriptions. It is a death that you are mourning over and over and over. It's been, as I said, I divorced in 2018. I'm heading into year 7. There are still triggers for me. There are times that I still think, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Why didn't I see it sooner? Why did I let it go on so long? One of the things that really, really helped me was I've always volunteered, but I doubled down on that. And I did it to take the focus off of me, to say, I still have a way that I can contribute and be productive because I felt so low. I felt absolutely worthless.
Wow. And I can tell you from knowing you and how much you do contribute to the world, That is so not true. But it's one thing for me to say it, it's another for you to feel it.
Exactly. And that's it. And that's why when you say contributing with a support group that I'm in, I tell people, I said, you know what? Graceful, be grateful, be appreciative, but give yourself grace as well. If all you can do is go make yourself a cup of coffee, do that. But my God, do something for yourself. But then take the focus off yourself because it's not just about you.
Yeah.
Even if you just go for a walk for 30 minutes, you say, I'm going to heat up a can of soup. There is still something that you can do. And there's only so much time that you can wallow, that eventually it gets to the point of it's not going to change anything for me to badmouth another person. It's not going to change anything for me to say what I should have done. I did what I did at the time because that's what made sense to me then. But I also know I no longer want to stay in this particular point. I do still have a life to live.
And I want to talk about that for a second. I mean, because you know you have just blossomed since then. And that is so important for people to see when they're in the beginning of the process because everything looks dark, everything looks bleak. Tell me about how you've rebuilt a life since your divorce.
Oh goodness, I have a brand new career now. I love where I work, enjoy the people I work with, have a very short commute, so I can't complain there. I'm more than doing my volunteer work on a local, regional, and national scale. I have finally gotten to the point, have not done it yet, but have finally gotten to the point of saying, I'm no longer going to rip a man's head off if he speaks to me.
That's a good thing. The men of the world probably appreciate that.
Because there was a point that it's like, don't speak to me, don't look at me, I will rip you to pieces. And I know that you always hear you can't make everyone else pay for what one person did. I know that, I get that, I understand that, but you also have to be in in the right headspace. Earlier, when you said, wow, what a length of time between 2012 and 2017 before you filed, that's because my head and my heart were not aligned. Intellectually, I knew it was limping. Intellectually, I knew it was done, but my heart wouldn't let it go. And now I can say, I enjoy my life. I volunteer, I go out for concerts, I go out and do things by myself. There was a point I would not have done that. Now I look and see what's happening. I don't need anybody to go with me.
Look at
And,
you.
and I got the biggest chuckle. I had mentioned to you before that there's this new phenomenon when they say the cougars are out there, the cubs are coming after the cougars. The last 3 guys who hit on me have been my son's age, and I'm thinking, "Are you kidding?" My sister said, "Go for it." I said, "Oh god, no, I can't look across the table and see my son."
Yeah.
But it actually is a wonderful straight stroke to the female ego because I can say it's been so many years, and I do mean years, since I have felt like a woman.
Hmm.
That it's wonderful that even though I won't reciprocate it and haven't, it's nice to be able to get that. And I'm also discovering an entire world I never knew because since I never dated, I didn't know how many very interesting men there are out there.
Listen to you.
But not necessarily good interesting, the stories that you say, is this really what we do? A gentleman who asked for my number and when he pulled his phone up and I saw his ring and said, well, how long have you been married? And he said, 40 years. Exactly. And
Okay.
I was actually astounded that I didn't want to give him my number. And I said, well, I really don't think your wife would appreciate this conversation.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm thinking, is this really what happens? And I've had a few friends of mine, they said, Monica, you haven't seen anything yet. They said, there are so many men out there that are doing what you would consider scandalous things. You don't realize, unfortunately, that's what happens because you were never in that world. Remember, I met my ex when I was 17.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know how to date.
But you're learning.
I don't even know when I'm being approached sometimes, I've been told.
Well, okay, but you've got to take into consideration where you were along in the journey. Like if you were in the stage where you wanted to rip a guy's head off and he was trying to ask you out, I'm thinking you didn't catch that clue.
Probably not. And I'm thinking, have I healed? I don't know that healed would be the word because healed makes it seem like there's a punctuation part. It's done. It's never being revisited. I would say I'm healing.
Okay.
And I'm definitely over the hump with it because I'm no longer angry. I'm no longer resentful. I'm no longer questioning. I've accepted that his decision was not about me, that I was a decent person. And
Mm-hmm.
people do change. And again, you can want something different. That's fine. It's just the approach that's being used. I wish that had been kinder and gentler, that we could have had more of a mediation type. But again, wishes don't make it so.
Yeah.
And I'm not revisiting that. I'm no longer saying it's my fault. That for me, I can say I've healed, that it's no
Yeah.
longer my fault.
And that's a beautiful thing. And I think we're all works in progress, so to speak. But Monica, I appreciate your coming here and sharing your story. I know so many people are going to listen to it, and I think they're going to be as inspired as I am because you are inspiring. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you. What I will tell anyone listening is you will go through it, and you will go through it, and you will go through it. But how you know you're healing, the triggers don't happen as often. They don't take you down as low. They don't take you down as often. That's how you know you're healing.
Yeah. Wise advice. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. And for those of you who are out there who are watching, who are listening, if you enjoyed Monica's story, if you want to hear more stories just like this, then do me a big favor. Leave a comment, let me know, like this episode, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I look forward to talking with you again next time.
Thank you, Karen.